Welcome in, everyone. We are so glad to have you with us today.
Absolutely. It's great to be here.
And yes, I mean, you, the listener, you're the essential third person in the room for this conversation.
We really do rely on your curiosity to drive these deep dives forward.
We really do. And today we're taking a close look at a very specific, highly passionate piece of writing that recently crossed our desks.
It's a compelling piece of text, for sure.
It really is. The mission today is to unpack an urgent essay written by a military veteran, specifically concerning the leadership of the Department of Homeland Security, the DHS.
Right.
We're looking at a piece published on March 6, 2026. It's by a United States Air Force veteran named Eric Reinhart.
And it's titled The Veteran Standard, Demanding Competence in Homeland Security Leadership.
Yeah, and it also ran under the rather striking headline, Homeland Security is not political theater. A veteran's warning about this nomination.
Which is quite the hook.
Oh, definitely. It's short, it's sharp, and it's a highly tactical piece of writing that gives us a lot to chew on regarding how we view the people tasked with keeping the country safe.
Before we get too far into the weeds here, I think it's crucial to establish the parameters of our discussion today.
Good point, yeah.
Because this source deals directly with a highly charged political nomination process, we're going to maintain absolute neutrality.
Right, that's an important distinction for us to make up front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our goal today is not to endorse the author's viewpoint. We aren't here to take a side on the current unnamed nomination he references, nor are we validating either side of the political aisle.
No, not at all.
Rather, our mission is strictly analytical. We want to impartially examine the author's argument, understand his unique perspective as a military veteran, and look at the specific historical context he relies on to make his case.
So we're treating this text as an artifact of civic engagement.
Precisely. We're examining its rhetorical strategy.
We're strictly looking under the hood of the argument itself. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
The essay doesn't start with a slow build. It jumps right into the deep end by grounding the reader in some very sobering history.
It really does.
Reinhart begins by taking us back to the origin of the Department of Homeland Security. He reminds the reader that the DHS was forged in the immediate, incredibly dark shadow of September 11th.
And rhetorically, that's a very deliberate starting point.
How so?
Well, by invoking September 11th right out of the gate, he immediately bypasses whatever daily political squabbles might be dominating the news cycle today. He forces the reader to remember the ultimate stakes.
He writes that the department was created when the United States recognized that protecting the homeland required a very specific set of traits.
Coordination, discipline, experienced leadership.
Exactly. He establishes that the existence of this department is rooted in a massive national trauma. Therefore, it was born out of a vital recognition that protecting the U.S. requires intense seriousness.
He's reminding you that the DHS wasn't created just to be another bureaucratic alphabet soup agency. It was an unprecedented consolidation of federal power and resources designed to prevent another catastrophic attack. When an agency is born from that kind of paradigm-shifting event, the mandate is inherently immense.
And he really drives that point home by breaking down what that mandate actually entails on a daily basis.
He doesn't just leave it at the theoretical level.
No, Reinhart explicitly states that the job of leading the DHS is not symbolic. He says it is not political theater. And to prove this, he lists 4 massive pillars of responsibility that fall squarely on the shoulders of the DHS.
And those are?
First, border security. Second, counterterrorism coordination. Third, emergency management. And fourth, the protection of critical infrastructure.
If we look closely at those 4 areas, they aren't abstract policy think tank concepts. They represent incredibly tangible life-or-death operational duties.
Yeah.
Take border security, for instance. It isn't just a talking point on a Sunday morning show.
Far from it.
It involves complex logistics, massive personnel management, and intricate international coordination.
And counterterrorism coordination isn't just a buzzword either. It's about synthesizing intelligence streams from multiple massive federal agencies to stop threats before they materialize.
Precisely. And then look at emergency management. When you think about FEMA responding to hurricanes, wildfires, floods, you're talking about the logistical nightmare of federal to state resource deployment.
Moving things from point A to point B when everything is falling apart.
Yes, it's about moving massive amounts of physical resources, water, medical supplies, rescue personnel quickly to save lives during real-time, chaotic crises.
Plus the protection of critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
That's securing the power grids, the water supplies, the cyber networks that keep modern society actually functioning.
It's massive.
When you lay them out like that, it hits you just how vast this department's footprint really is.
He emphasizes these specific pillars to make a point about the necessary skill set.
Yeah.
This role requires a leader who inherently understands complex logistics, crisis management, and operational readiness.
You can't fake that.
No, you can't just spin a natural disaster or a cyber attack on a major power grid. You actually have to manage the fallout. He's setting up the premise that political messaging on television doesn't fix a broken levee or stop a cyber threat.
That leads perfectly into how Reinhardt builds the next layer of his argument. To prove that this standard of seriousness isn't just his personal opinion or some unattainable ideal, he provides a historical roster of past leaders.
This is a really interesting rhetorical move.
It is. He actually runs through a whole list of former secretaries to prove this. Everyone from Tom Ridge and Michael Chertoff to Janet Napolitano and Jed Johnson, all the way through John F. Kelly, Kirstjen Nielsen, Alejandro Mayorkas, and Kristi Noem.
What's fascinating here is the deliberate nature of that list. He is weaving together a deeply bipartisan lineage.
Yeah, quite the mix.
You have figures appointed by George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden. He crosses ideological lines, administration shifts, and vastly different eras of American politics over the past 2 decades.
And looking at that list, you immediately notice a pattern. He's crossing party lines to make a broader point about the job itself.
Exactly.
Reinhardt notes that every single one of those individuals brought vastly different politics to the table. They all had entirely different policy priorities. Some focused heavily on immigration, others were laser focused on cybersecurity, others on counterterrorism.
But despite all those differences,
They all shared one foundational trait. In his words, the seriousness of the mission itself was never in doubt.
and this is where we need to do a quick neutrality check for our deep dive today.
Always important.
The public, historians, and politicians fiercely debate the actual legacies, the specific decisions, and the major controversies surrounding those individual leaders. Frankly, some of the figures on that list are among the most polarizing political figures in recent history.
Absolutely, their tenures are heavily debated.
But Reinhardt isn't writing this to validate their specific policies or defend their individual decisions. He uses them to establish a historical baseline for the reader.
The floor, essentially.
Yes. His argument is that historically, regardless of whether you agreed with the person in charge or their politics, there was a foundational floor of operational seriousness that was maintained. They were fundamentally viewed as managers of a grave responsibility.
He sets up a contrast between that historical baseline and the unnamed current nomination he is warning against.
Right. He's effectively separating the policy from the plumbing. You can disagree on where the ship is sailing, but you still need a captain who knows how to read the radar.
That's a great way to put it. And to understand why he is so fiercely protective of this operational standard, we have to look at his personal background. This essay isn't written by a political pundit sitting in a studio.
No, it's written by a United States Air Force veteran.
And he tells us something very specific about his service record. He was recognized as NCO, or Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year, at 3 distinct levels: group, base, and wing. He uses this pedigree as the lens for his entire argument.
It serves as the anchor of his authority in the text. To really unpack why he includes those specific awards, it helps to understand what a non-commissioned officer actually does in the military structure.
Break that down for us.
NCOs are widely considered the backbone of the armed forces. They are the enlisted leaders responsible for the daily, gritty, operational execution of the mission. While commissioned officers might focus on high-level strategy and planning, the NCOs are the ones training the troops, enforcing the physical standards, and ensuring the machinery of the military actually functions on the ground.
So when Reinhardt points out that he won NCO of the Year at the group level, then the base level, and then the wing level, he isn't just dropping titles.
Not at all. He is outlining a consistent, escalating track record of recognized excellence in operational leadership.
Yes, and he explicitly states that those awards were not about personal recognition or glory. He doesn't include them to brag.
Right.
He argues that they reflect the strict standards expected of leaders who are entrusted with mission success and the physical safety of others.
Because in the military, leadership is a deeply consequential duty. A lack of competence in that arena doesn't just result in a missed deadline.
It can result in a loss of life.
Exactly.
That distinction regarding the safety of others is huge. Let's use an analogy here to frame exactly what he's getting at. Think about the difference between a casual project manager at a tech startup and an air traffic controller.
That's a really helpful comparison.
If the project manager at the startup drops the ball, maybe a software update gets delayed, or they miss a quarterly revenue goal, it's not ideal, but it isn't catastrophic.
Nobody's in physical danger.
Right. But if an air traffic controller loses focus or lacks the necessary competence to manage multiple overlapping logistics in real-time airplanes crash, the operational metrics literally determine whether people live or die.
Reinhardt is taking that deeply ingrained military mindset, the air traffic controller mindset, and superimposing it directly over the Department of Homeland Security.
He is arguing that this exact same seriousness, this absolute refusal to be casual about the job, must apply to whoever is leading the DHS.
Because, as we established with those 4 pillars earlier, the DHS deals with life-and-death operational realities every single day.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Up to this point, the essay reads like a well-reasoned history lesson, mixed with a philosophical reflection on what leadership means.
It's very reflective.
But then, Reinhardt pivots sharply. The essay transforms from reflection into a very specific, urgent warning.
He shifts gears entirely.
He applies all of this context, the 9/11 origins, the bipartisan history, his NCO background, to an unnamed current nomination for DHS leadership. He draws a firm line in the sand regarding what the American people deserve.
He lays out 3 specific traits that he argues must be present for anyone taking this role. He says leadership must be grounded in competence, judgment, and experience.
And he specifies that these traits must be entirely equal to the massive responsibility of protecting the country.
He's saying the resume has to actually match the reality of the threat. If the threat is monumental, which post-9/11 Homeland Security inherently is, then the experience and judgment of the leader must be equally monumental.
And this is where his military background really dictates the structure of the writing itself. He doesn't just write this essay to vent his frustrations about the state of politics.
Or to complain generally about a nomination, yeah.
Right. He translates his military ethos into a highly tactical, direct call for civic action. He essentially issues a direct order to his readers.
It completely shifts from an essay to an instruction manual.
It really does. He tells the reader, if you believe the leadership of Homeland Security must meet that standard, make your voice heard. And he doesn't leave it there with some vague encouragement to go vote or be engaged in democracy.
He gives the reader the exact blueprint for action.
He says to call the United States Capitol Switchboard. He provides the actual phone number right there in the text.
Which is?
It's 202-224-3121. He instructs you to ask to be connected to your senator, and he even gives you the exact script to read when the staffer answers the phone.
The tactical nature of that is really worth analyzing.
He writes, tell them clearly, do not confirm this nomination. The security of the American people deserves nothing less than the most qualified leadership available. He literally puts the words in your mouth.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this conclusion mirrors standard military communication protocols perfectly.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, in military operations, an order must be clear, concise, and immediately actionable. You don't leave room for ambiguity, and you reduce the friction required to execute the task. Look at the structural mechanics of how he built this entire piece.
Okay.
First, he states the mission, protecting the homeland and honoring the post-911 mandate. Second, he establishes the standard required, competence, judgment, and experience. Third, he identifies the threat to that mission, an unqualified nomination treating the role like political theater.
And finally,
He provides the actionable steps to execute the mission, picking up the phone, dialing that specific switchboard number, and delivering a precise pre-written message to block the confirmation.
he leaves absolutely nothing to chance. He's not saying, hey, write a letter when you have some free time this week. He's saying, here is the number, here are the words, make the call right now.
It's a very deliberate rhetorical strategy designed to mobilize the reader immediately. By providing the script and the phone number, he removes the barrier to entry for civic participation. You don't have to figure out who to call or what to say.
You just have to execute the steps he outlined.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this right now? Why should you care about this one veteran's essay regarding a cabinet nomination?
It's the so what of the whole thing.
Yeah, well, whether or not you agree with Reinhardt's specific political aim regarding this unnamed nomination, or whether you align with his view of the current political landscape at all, his essay highlights a crucial reality that affects all of us.
It does.
As we discussed with those 4 pillars, The DHS oversees emergency management and the protection of critical infrastructure. That means the competence of its leadership is not just a theoretical debate for talking heads in Washington to argue about on Sunday mornings.
No, it directly impacts your everyday safety. It's the infrastructure of daily life.
Exactly. It impacts the security of your local power grids when you turn on the lights in your house. It impacts how efficiently your community receives federal aid and resources if a hurricane or a massive flood hits your town.
Or the security protocols at the airport when you travel to see your family for the holidays.
Reinhardt is reminding us that beneath all the noise and the spectacle of politics, there is a sprawling, very real apparatus designed to keep the basic physical functions of our society safe. And the person steering that massive ship matters immensely to your daily life.
This raises an important question, though, and it is something I think is worth pondering as we look at the broader implications of his argument.
What's that?
Reinhardt places the ultimate safeguard for this standard of competence directly in the hands of the Senate confirmation process. He urges citizens to leverage their civic power to pressure their senators to act as the final filter against unqualified leadership.
Right, he relies on the system to correct itself through public pressure.
But it makes you wonder about the mechanics of that system today. In our current era of modern governance, what happens if the very definition of a word like competence becomes entirely subjective?
No, that's tricky.
If what one side of the public views as vital experience, the other side views as entrenched corruption, or what one side views as sound judgment, another views as dangerous weakness.
It fragments the whole idea of a standard.
Right. How can a unified, objective standard for national security leadership ever be universally agreed upon? If the public is fundamentally polarized on what constitutes basic operational reality, the mechanism Reinhardt relies on, public pressure enforcing a shared standard, becomes incredibly complicated.
It really does.
How do we enforce a shared standard when we don't share a reality? It's a fascinating challenge for the future of how we govern complex systems.
That is such a profound point to end on. If the standard itself becomes completely subjective, the safety net he's relying on gets awfully flimsy.
That certainly gives us a lot to think about.
It's definitely something to mull over the next time you see a headline about a major political appointment, especially one dealing with the nuts and bolts of national security.
Absolutely.
We want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to unpack these complex ideas with us. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and we will catch you on the next deep dive. Take care, everyone.